We're here again with McTier. We're going to talk today about the top 10 things that you either wish you knew before you started your first firm or that, you really have to know before you start your firm. Ty, I'm going to kind of let you have the floor with this. How did you know that you were ready to go out on your own?
Well, first off, I'll address the top 10 things because I feel like that changes every every month, at least the order of importance of those things and whether or not those things even belong on the list. So I think just saying that the ability to thrive in chaos would be the first question you would ask yourself. Can I survive in an environment where I have virtually no control? And if the answer is yes to that, then I think you're at least mentally ready to go out on your own.
So how is that different than when you were a partner in your own firm or when you were working? You've worked and made partner in different firms. So you've done it all. You've clerked, you've been the associate, you've ran the associates, and you've made partners. So now you've got your own practice. Tell me the difference in that mindset that you really have to make that jump and make that jump successfully.
Well, there's a bit more chaos when you're on your own because there's nobody else to look to, for advice. Not only in a case, because I was right at 10 years in the practice. There's always times I miss where I can go and lean on somebody for advice. But at that point, you kind of know what you're doing in the practice. I think starting on your own before then would be. I mean, you could definitely do it. There are many people that have done it, but that's the point where I've just heard so many litigators say, once you're about 10 years in, that's when you really know what you're doing. I agree with that. I think that's the 10-year mark is it's not so much just the years as it is that the amount of hours that you put into it to get good at something. And it takes time to figure out what you really want to do as well. Because there are some years where you're just working for a partner because they said, "Hey, go do this or go do that." And then you start to come into your own a little bit and realize, okay, what cases do I want? And also, really more importantly, what clients do I want? What type of
Right. And that
clients do I want to be around me all the time?
So that kind of leads us to our next question. You have to decide which kind of firm that you're actually building. So how did you make that decision?
A lot of that was already made for me through years prior to networking to figure out what clients I really want. And the answer for me is the majority of my clients, I want to be owners of small businesses. I've always felt an affinity for those individuals, either self-employed or, taking the risk, starting their own business. I do, like representing businesses as well. And sometimes those really pay the bills, but on a day to day, what I'm passionate about is helping small business owners. I'm helping everybody, but that level of clientele I really identify with. And I started to get those cases just through networking, a few years before I started my firm, and I've just always enjoyed that. So that's
Right.
a lot of this was set up, years prior in my own preference, and I just wanted a continuation of that.
What trade-offs do you think that you made when you were partner versus your first month working for yourself? Like what were the trade-offs that you knew were coming? And then what were like a couple that took you by surprise?
I guess where you're getting at is what was better, what was more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think? So you went into from a partner perspective with a whole team behind you, a whole group of everybody, like you were completely set up and you wanted to go out on your own. What you imagined the firm to be month one versus what it actually was. Give me some of the good and bads of that.
Well, the good for me is the control over the business and the clients that come in. I had a pretty decent amount of control over the latter, but being able to, make the decisions on how the business should be run was fun. Definitely at first, over time, depending on the day that you ask me, but it's been exciting to see all the decisions I've always wanted to make, see how they're actually playing out.
Playing out, right?
Yeah, and well, the best trade-off for me was having this technology available on day one. I know you rushed it into production to have it for me so that I could start. And even the very first version of Firm Overwatch was incredible when I first started because I could see where my cases were, And I don't think there's any way I could have handled that amount of cases coming over with me without it. I would have missed something. And because of that, I would have had to tell a few of my clients that came over, like, look, you need to, go with someone else. But just being able to know what's next and everything prioritized in the system that I like helped me to stay sane during those first few months. And, there's a ton of energy, getting off the ground. The, first set of invoices that went out, and some of them immediately getting paid, as soon
Felt
as they
good.
hit the email, that was a cool feeling. And at that point in time, I had a paralegal. About two weeks in, Anna joined the firm, and it's been amazing for the firm. But that moment was cool because we sent out the invoices and we're thinking, okay, well, we might get some next week or whatever. And all of a sudden, boom, some of them hit, and it's like, all right, we got a business now. This is
Right.
this is a real thing.
You really have to decide in any business on how the work moves when you're not in the room. And when you brought Anna in, you were able to get that work moving and to not have your hands and your fingerprint on every single thing. You were starting immediately started to build a team. So what thought process led you to have to have a team immediately? And what gave you the courage to do such an
Well,
incredible move?
the original plan was to get a paralegal about 3 or 4 months in, that, I would handle everything, work crazy hours, but manage everything, and then get a paralegal in 3 or 4 months, and then maybe think about an associate in a year and a half, 2 years down the road. But there's 3 sets of client letters that went out to try to stagger it and give everybody enough time. The firm, me, clients, everything. It was all amicable, and we wanted it to not be rushed. So the first set went out, and the majority of the clients wanted to come over, which I was like, okay. I kind of figured they would. I've known them for a while. Second set went out, and same thing. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to need somebody. I mean, I've got this technology that's going to help out. At least at that point, I had faith in that it would help out, because it was brand new. And then when the third set went out, and pretty much the same results with that one, it's like, I have to get a paralegal yesterday. Thankfully, I was able to find somebody, and mid-March she started.
Well, your superpower is definitely you're arguing in court. You're great at that, but getting clients has never been something you don't sit there and wait and play Xbox while you watch the paint dry, hoping a client comes in. You've always been able to do that, and that's been a straight up blessing. Because a lot of the guys that I talk with are just lawyers in general. That is where the bottlenecks are, is grabbing the new clients, and that's where they worry about a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Well, that is number one credit has to go to my/our dad, and dragging me around to all his real estate sales meetings and all. Um, yeah, it's just learning how to talk to people and network. That's something I've learned since I was 5 or 6 years old. So that's not anything that, you know, any credit can be given to other David McTier on that one. Because I'm naturally a shy person. I say dragged around because I'd rather sit in a corner and eat my food and not talk to anybody. But him forcing me to talk to people, introduce myself, that definitely set me on a different course than I was headed.
Yeah, it opens the doors to a new world. You've it kind of leads straight into number three. Like when you build your firm around mistake prevention, it allows you to day one keep going. Like you already had Firm Overwatch in place, and Firm Overwatch thrives inside of a team environment. So you immediately, if I were to just schedule out what I would like for you to do, you basically did that. Once you started on your own, you got familiar with the system, and then you built a team around the system, which that was great, and that's exactly what the software is designed to do. So how did you see that through? Like what were some of the big mistakes that you made, and what were some of the things that people that are watching this looking to start their own firm one day can save an extra month of their life if they follow maybe not what you did, but what you didn't do?
I'd say all of my mistakes that I'm aware of happen in the growth phase. The first few months were seamless or amazing. It's very, very low overhead. I had, excluding salaries, maybe 4,000 a month to take care of, maybe. for overhead. And as the firm has grown, even without the salaries, I mean, every time you go to a mediation or depositions come up and you got to pay these vendors. One huge mistake that I made that I'm not making anymore is we got to have money up front for that. Because let's say, with 10 cases, and I have way more than 10 cases, but let's say if in a 2-month period you had 10 things to do, 10 depositions or mediations, and you didn't get that money up front. Well, one, you're waiting on your client to send the invoice for that, and hopefully they'll pay. But that all the mistakes that I'm aware of was from the growth phase and not protecting yourself up front as you're
Yeah.
growing.
So
Because
how would you do that differently now? Or how are you doing that differently?
well, one of the things I'm doing differently is Firm Overwatch does have a late payment option where once the client is late, you can click on that late payment and it basically shows you when you look at your cases tab and you have all your cases, it'll show up as orange in there. And so you can kind of get a feel for who's late and who's not. So you can take the next steps. And one thing I'm doing now is being way more aggressive on getting out of cases when not getting paid because the first 4 or 5 months no problem whatsoever. I just have my salary, my paralegal salary, and low overhead. And so if 70% of the invoices didn't get paid 1 month, still have a good month. Not a great month. Nobody's really happy, but be okay. So protecting yourself through the growth has been the biggest learning curve because I've learned how to generate business and to start something. And even on the back end to grow a business, I've had experience doing that. But this in between portion, I've never experienced before. And I think that the biggest trade-off is not having someone to talk to about that. 'Cause, just never had to do it. And not many people have. A lot of people give up at this phase because they're
Yeah,
just like,
well, it's
I
all
can't grow, right? Because you have to become different.
yeah, it's always tough. And the reason to go back to Firm Overwatch with the button that you talked about, the reason that existed was because you were in a phase where you needed to know who you were actually working for. You have these cases on the books and you need to know which ones are actually paying you because those are the people you're truly working for. And because of user experience there, we made it happen. We designed it for you. And that's what we're really about is to make the lawyers and the firms that we work with, their experience as just seamless and easy as possible in the pre-litigation phase. We can't help you when you get in the courtroom, but what we can do is help you 100% have a better mindset going to that courtroom because we've handled a lot of these aggravations beforehand. So again, if you see anything that needs to be built, let us know. And that kind of moves us, to number 4. You have to price for sustainability. Like you have to know what you're worth and you have to understand. There was a headline yesterday that was some lawyers in DC are charging $4,000 an hour. That was circling all around Twitter, that was fantastic. If you're in DC, I guess, but you have to know what you're worth. You have to know how you're going to collect those payments, how you're going to get paid. And it's a non-negotiable. So how did you set your pricing? Like you knew that from the, decade plus that you practiced beforehand?
Well, a lot of it is just each year since I've become a partner, I've decided that. But this wasn't anything new. It was looking at, through the course of a year, I get to look at a lot of attorney affidavits and get to see what other people are charging, especially in the Charlotte area. And I try to keep my rate around that same level of experience, kind of at or below what I see. And also, as I get more experienced, the rate does go up for not only the experience, but I don't have to put in a ton of time on certain parts of the case where before I was having to kind of do it all and given kind of a discounted rate when I did one particular task versus another. And now that I have a team and the team is working well, the new associate Brianna, she's doing incredible. It's taking a lot off my plate and doing a really good job what she sets out to do. And that helps me set my hourly rate because what the main things that I want to be doing, and I think in the very near future, I'll just be doing these things. In the case, once a client comes in, will be just making sure all the deadlines are hit, kind of overwatching all the cases, stepping in to counsel the client when needed, give them direction, and give the associate and paralegal direction as well. And then after that, take the key deposition and prepare for trial. If I can limit myself to those things,
You've
then
defined what you love and what you're really great at, so you're doing those things. So that's the
well,
best thing about it.
it's what's necessary too. I'm glad those things align what I love to do and it's what's necessary. But yeah, those are the things you've got to do. A client has to know what to expect. Going in there, they've got to be counseled. For big cases, especially, you've got to take a good deposition and not a great one, just a good one. But, you get the facts you need, and then getting ready for trial. You've got to be prepared. 'Cause it's just like the old adage, I've heard it so much with, preparing for the storm. If you're ready and prepared, nothing happens. I don't know what it is with that. One day I'll ask our creator why that is, but it's the same thing with the law. If you are ready to go try a case, probably not trying it. But that's also a good thing because you are prepared, you've put your client in a good position. The other side's scrambling, the other side's scared, and that's when I see their offers either move up or move down dramatically.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a second because the clients are what make the world go round and round, and they're also the great and the most aggravating part sometimes. How do you build an intake system that filters and you don't just accept everybody? Because I think that's an important part of any business. You don't just if you're just working with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that walk into the building, you're going to have a rough life.
Mhm.
To pick and choose your clients, which is what I've kind of been able to do in my life, has been a life that has the minimal amount of headaches possible. So how do you do that in your legal practice?
That's something I'm trying to figure out right now, frankly. I wish I had a explanation of I did this and everything changed. As far as the automation, everything is in there for the process, but how to filter, that's something. In fact, I'm my office administrator is coming in this week, and we're going to sit down and we're going to work on that, on how to filter people out because you don't want to get too aggressive on that, and you'll miss out on either a good case or something that doesn't take very long to do and is super important for somebody. I had actually had early on, I had someone filtered out that actually was pretty close to me, and needed help, and I didn't know about it at all. And then I was kind of going back through and looking, and I was like, why didn't we get set up with a meeting? And like, yeah, it just didn't seem like the parameters we had set up. I'm like, "Uh, I see that, but it ended up being like 10 minutes worth of work. Got a great result from the person. So that's tough. It's something I'm gonna have to report back on that one because I don't know yet. I mean, the one thing I've done recently that's helped out a lot is have Brianna, the associate, field calls, and that's helped me out a lot because she knows how to ask questions, and she's been a very good filtering tool. I can't say completely that don't have something in place that's working. I just started that, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, well, what kind of signals you that a case could be more trouble than it's worth? Because we talked the other day, and you're like, if a client comes in and says, "I'll give you half," you probably should run away. What are
Yeah,
some of the markers?
yeah, that's definitely one. A client offering to give you a larger portion of a contingency than anybody should ever take. Like, hey, I'll give you 70%. I've heard crazy things like that. They're desperate and they need somebody, and it tells me that they've been around to many, many attorneys and nobody has taken their cases. There are rare exceptions to that. In fact, particular case I've got now that if I strictly use that filter, I would have kicked them out.
Yeah.
But everything else matched up. I mean, that was definitely a red flag, but I was the only red flag.
Are you actively building a filter that you and your team can use? An understanding there?
Yes. So I need to, once I come up with the steps, I know where to turn. In fact, I know how to go on from Overwatch and put it in there, how to filter out and do a checklist. Um, I just haven't figured that out yet. And that
Okay.
that might be something I've been thinking about a lot, and it's probably going to be one of the best things that I've ever done is to get that set up.
Yeah, and talk to me a little bit about how a new law firm would build referrals better.
Well, I haven't had much time to get out and network. Um, Probably had
But
3 or
you came
4.
in with a large network, like you
Right,
came
'cause I
you
did the
brought it
work.
with you. Yeah, because you did it before.
years before. Yeah.
Right.
And the short answer is if you get a great result for a client quickly, you will get all the referrals in the world from that person. Unfortunately, it has to be a great result and quickly. Great results slowly don't matter. As soon as they feel like it's slow, it's over. And a lot of that comes down to counseling. That's one thing that I'm focusing on now is being upfront and telling them this is not a quick process. If we move lightning fast and had the complaint drafted and filed and served yesterday, you're not going to see any money until about a year from now.
Right.
Best case. We're not
Managing
trying this case.
expectations.
Yeah, right. And that is something that I could do more of now that I'm freeing up my time. I will say haven't done I wouldn't say a bad job of that, but definitely not an excellent job at managing expectations. And that's something I'm definitely working on in 2026. How to do that. But almost everything that I'm working on, the key is having staff in place to borrow Dan Martell's line, to buy back your time. And I'm close, really close to that. And I'm
Right.
so excited.
It kind of moves us on to the sixth point. You have to figure out what kind of firm that you want to run. You have to figure out the structure you're on, and you have to figure out what kind of, technology is going to help you do that. What separates you from a lot of the new firms that I talk with is the fact that you already knew what stack you're running. Like you basically helped develop a stack specifically to run your firm. So how would understanding that benefit as you've seen it in your starting of your law firm? How does understanding that initially benefit your firm going forward?
Well, I was hyper focused on the technology part because I'm not a technology person. I'm not a technological person. Nobody that knows me at all would ever say, "Oh, Ty's a techie." That's not me. I know enough to get by and do what I need to in the profession, but because that's kind of a soft underbelly for me, I wanted something that actually makes sense. And everything that's out there that I've seen, definitely as of March of last year, nothing was automated. And if it was clunky. And through the generation of the technology that you've made, from me saying this is what I would like to see, you've done everything I've said, hey, I'd like it to do this. You've been able to do that. And it's definitely the number one technology that I'm using. I would say Firm Overwatch number one. It's probably the tie between the Westlaw AI and I'm using my case, but
For your trust
I'd probably
account
put
stuff?
yeah, in my case with trust account for I use it to help me out on the trust account. I still do it the old school way because I want to make sure that thing's good every month. But it is helpful. I'd say the Westlaw would be number two as far as my growth now, because I feel like, my case does a great job. I love that program, but there's a lot of programs that can send out invoices. And that's really what I have it for. Enter time, send out invoices.
Yeah, and that's what we built with Firm Overwatch. We wanted it to do what the other systems out there didn't do. I mean, there are a lot of law softwares out there that will do what you're talking about, and they're very similar, and some of them have a couple more bells and whistles than the others, and some of them are a little more easier to operate than others. But we specifically wanted to focus on building a team software for litigation firms, period. That's it. Like, if you're a litigation firm and you operate in a team environment, you will benefit from Firm Overwatch, and it's incredibly easy. So that's A, it's great to hear, but B, going in and understanding that leveraging technology as an extra person in your firm or an extra 5 people in your firm, because with Firm Overwatch, you don't just get one extra person; you get one extra person for every person you have, basically. So it replicates who you are in the system that you want to run inside of your practice at all times, as long as you've set it up to do so. And that's exciting and fun. Let's go on to the next thing. I mean, how did you? Most people don't run a law firm like a business because they don't do the things that we've talked about. They don't have software set up. They don't have processes set up to help them do so. How did you initially understand that running a law firm is a business, and how did you separate that from the normal way of thinking for the legal world?
Moment where I realized, oh, this is not only is this a business, but it has to be run like a business, was with the growth. I had gotten too many cases coming in that I could handle myself and stay sane and be a family man. So I had to grow and had to hire and expand. through that process, which hopefully I'm putting the bow on it now, has taught me that if you don't run your firm like a business, then it's not going to grow. I mean, you can almost always have, as long as you do halfway decent work, you're going to have clients coming in. There aren't many, there just aren't many litigators out there. I mean, there are some out there that are, careful what I say here, but they're not that good, and they're mean to people. And they've been in business for many, 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 many years, because a case is going to come across your desk. It's going to happen. The question is, can you get enough coming in to grow? That's the hard part. And
Yeah.
that's
Well,
why a lot of people miss.
when you're talking about, you run into lawyers that don't really seem to be really in it. They're aggressive or mean. It's usually, in my mind, and what I've seen and the steps that I see from young lawyers to the older lawyers I talk with, is that they've spent time inside of a system for years that rewards just straight up clown behavior. I mean, the whole practice of law is a circus, especially when you get in the courtroom. But when you run pre-litigation like a circus all the time, you're not a ringleader. You are you become that clown. Some people are just happier clowns than others. So that's why there's multiple movies about clowns out there that terrify all of us. In putting together again the system, you realized early on, from what I know, that there was a difference between running a law firm and a business. You also understood the value of having a case path, that all of your cases that were pretty standard that they ran through. And that's what firm overlaps can really benefit any law employee, is that if you have an understanding of the path that you take. We've onboarded one firm that they didn't have anything really written out. It all lived in their head, right? Which is what most people do. It all lived in their head in spreadsheet and emails. But as they were writing it out, which I think you've seen too, that there's just so many more things that you need to have done that you would have to normally talk to, send an email about, or take your time to explain, than that when you write it out and everybody's role is clearly defined, you can very easily move forward, or easier than it would be without. So creating a case path basically before you even know that you need them is something that I think is a huge role in growth.
Yeah, that brought my mind back to the early days of working at my old firm. When I was hired on, I was kind of hired on even as an attorney, just because they didn't have enough legal work to go around, but they didn't have enough administrative help either. And so I was going to start my own firm out of the gate, which would have been crazy. But one of the partners was like, "Look, just swallow your pride for a year, work as a paralegal. Like, we need paralegal help." And I'm like, "All right, well, for you, yeah, I'll do that." So, well, I stayed there for 10 years, right at 10 years.
Yeah, not as a paralegal,
Yeah,
but
after
yeah.
that. No. I mean, I was an attorney, but it took about 3 months, 3 or 4 months after coming on as a paralegal. I had a full book of business, because I'd give everybody the option in the firm. Like, everybody is not taking this case, right? Okay, I'll take it. So I took everything. Absolutely everything. I had to warn a couple of them, like, "Look, we'll take it on, but I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, because I think that's frivolous." And for the ones that were not frivolous, I was taking it all, and I learned a lot through that process. There's definitely some diamonds in the rough when you do that. And going back, I would say that the biggest difference between practicing law within a firm and then going and starting your own is that growth period. Because I believe if you know what you're doing when you go out your own, you're going to get business. Number one, I feel like you would keep more of the clients than you think, because I was expecting, in my head, my fear was like, okay, maybe 20 or 30% will come over with me. Ended up being a much, much, much higher percentage than that, which, got me thinking. I didn't even fathom that would happen. And that forced me to quickly grow and hire a paralegal, and then uh, shortly after that, have to go and look for an associate. That was a saga in itself, as a young firm trying to get someone in as an associate, and balance the risk of paying them with sharing more in the profits later on. But that was a hard thing.
Yeah, it kind of moves us on to number 9. When you building a reliable source for new work and the ability to expand and hire that first associate, you've built a reliable source for work. How can other young firms or somebody that's thinking about starting their firm, how can they work towards building a network, a reliable source of work that will bring in some kind of consistency to owning and opening up a new business?
I would say, just based on my history and talking with other attorneys as well, if you're this advice is for people that are over 1 to 3 years in the practice. Because 1 to 3 years, my advice would be in a firm, learn as much as you can, work as much as you can. Forget about work-life balance for those 3 years. Just learn it. Learn how to practice. Get in with a good firm, learn how to practice.
Yeah, and I would add, learn with the intent of where you're going.
Yeah.
Don't you have to keep that frame of mind. But go ahead.
That's why I say work a lot of hours and learn the craft, because once you truly get down the steps of litigation, you could segue that into just about anything you want to do. But learning the rhythm of a case, learning discovery, what's discoverable, what's not, those are things that are extremely helpful in your practice. But the best way to generate clients is to do good work for the clients that you have. That will spawn off into more work than you can imagine. Do good work quick. Part of that quick is telling them what quick is and preaching to them what fast is, because sometimes I've got crazy fast results, but the client feels like it's slow because I didn't take the time to sit down with them and say, when is we get this result in this time frame? But that's the number one way to generate business. Do good work for your clients, do it quickly, and have them know what quickly means. The secondary way is just to go hang out with other attorneys. I used to think, okay, well, maybe not litigation attorneys, but yeah, any attorney that's practicing in your area, go hang out with them, go to lunch, just rub elbows with them. And then third would be, join a networking group. If you don't have enough business or you want to grow your business, just go join a networking group. It's not much time. Some groups require more time than others, but the most aggressive that I've even heard of is just you meet once a week. You
Yeah, how
go
did
and
I know you did that early on, pretty heavy. How did you see that benefit the lawyer you were becoming, and how did that benefit your old firm and maybe your new firm?
well, I started that because I had a really good year, and I was looking back, might have been a little crazy, but I was wanting to be a partner soon. It's like, all right, even if it's a small percentage, like make me a partner, and it's like, well, you worked amazing, but those are my clients that you did work on. I'm like, okay. So the next year I got my clients. So that's why I wanted to do a networking group that met a lot. And so BNI made a lot of sense for me. And that group was amazing for my development. It taught me a ton about networking and the type of clients you need and how not to be taken advantage of. But those are just tough lessons you got to learn.
Yeah, you
It
don't
took
want to learn
about
that right when you go off on your own either. Those are lessons you need to learn before you start that. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, after the third year, you need to be networking. Years 1 to 3, you're learning, and after that, I'd be especially if your end goal is to have your own firm or be a partner somewhere. Because if you can't generate your own business, then you're going to be miserable as a partner. Miserable because you don't have any leverage. The only leverage you have if you can't generate a business is the 1,800 to 2,000 hours that you can work. That's a miserable way to live. 1,800, 2,000 hours. That's not in the office hours. That's billing. So you can bill 80% of your day without serious consequences mentally for a while. But if you keep that sustained, something in your life is going to fall apart.
yeah. Well,
I have,
nobody does that,
yeah,
Todd. Nobody sustains that path without massive damage. I mean, the stats are pretty clear that the majority of lawyers, even if they can front load something for a month or two, they can't sustain it. So you're looking at between 2 and 4 hours of billable time every day across the board in the law profession. And that's not me saying that. That's the studies that billion-dollar companies have done. It's right under 3 hours a day. It's really ridiculous. So what we built really helps lawyers with that. And I know you've got a really good work-life balance right now, but that's something you've had to fight for because they're all traps out there waiting for you. They're all same things that somebody else falls for. Is right there for you. So you've built systems that allow you to skip over a lot of that, and plus you've learned it before you jumped out on your own. So that was key. And it kind of moves us, to the last thing here. what makes the firm, kind of legible to you? How do you check on the health of the firm? How often do you do that? Because I know in my life, no matter what I do, whatever business that I'm dealing with, it's 100%. I have to weekly at least look back and say, did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish this past week? Was I the person that I wanted to become this past week? How do you do that inside of a law firm and be, a true human being as well?
There's 3 places I check. First, and I've learned this from Alex Hormozy, is the bank account. You pull up that thing at least once a day. Pull up the bank account, figure out just how things work, get the rhythm of what comes in and out. That's something that is just an incredible skill, and I'm still learning how to do it, but that helps a lot of decisions, like, 'cause I think something's working, but the ultimate indicator is that bank account moving or is it not?
Yeah, I was in Miami, and there was a fitness model there who I was sketching, and somebody came up to her and asked her, like, how do you define when you're there? Because you're obviously there. She pulled him over and she pointed at the reflection. She said, that doesn't lie. The guy was like, oh, okay. So it's not you're doing X number of this. You're not quantifying this out. It's like you said, you're looking at a bank account. There's your bottom line there, literally. So
No,
that
I love that example because, yeah, I mean, you could be like, "Oh, I'm working out hard." Like, mirror doesn't lie.
no.
Mirror shows you what you've been doing, and that mirror is the bank account. The second place is Firm Overwatch, where I look at my cases and see how they're progressing. So the first indicator is how is the firm doing. Second is how are the cases moving along because, happy clients typically pay their bills better. And the third place is I look on my case, just check the records, make sure everybody's recording their time. Because I've noticed in the law, if when someone's going through something in their life, their hours drop, and that's the main reason I check that is to make sure somebody's not either going through something or falling into a depression. But that is the number one indicator. Either they're not happy with their job or they're starting to slide into depression if the numbers are down.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
everybody works.
it's A or B. I mean, either you're not happy with what you're doing, which that's something that should be addressed, right? If you're not happy, then let's talk about it. And the secondary is I'm still happy with what I do. I'm just burnout or depressed, and it's really I think the overwhelming majority of attorneys that say they're depressed are truly burnout because the difference I read recently, the difference between burnout and depression is again not a actual psychologist, do have a psychology degree, but the big difference, and this hit me like a ton of bricks, is that depression you could take someone, you could clear their calendar and get rid of all of the stress that they're under. Put them on a deserted island with their 5 favorite people, and they would still be depressed because something in their brain, the chemicals are off, right? It's just they're depressed. Someone is burnt out, you do that, they're going to have the time of their life. And that's when I realized, man, that was me in many, many different times in my life where I thought I was getting down and depressed. I was just burnt out. And every time I got out of that stressful environment, I was me 100%. The number one tool that has helped me avoid that has been Firm Overwatch. And then secondarily, having good people that work here. And I'm really looking forward to 2026 and also coming up with that path for filtering to the extent it can be
Automated.
set out and
Yeah.
automated. I know Firm Overwatch is going to kill it. I just have to figure that out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I would love actually to have another attorney on here to talk about how does he filter or how does she filter their cases? Because
Yeah, we're getting to that very soon. The biggest thing with what you're saying at the end there was, if you build a campfire and you want that campfire, the goal is to keep you warm all winter. It's about managing the campfire. So you can't just sit around the campfire and enjoy the heat, right? You got to do the things that give you the fuel to throw on the campfire. You got to keep you yourself and all the people that are helping you throw wood on the campfire. They have to be excited and understanding why they're throwing the wood on the campfire. And you've got to have people that their job is to go down and cut down the wood or gather. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. It's not just I like fire and I like sitting by a campfire camping and getting warm. You have to have a plan with everything, and it's 100% about managing that fire that burns within you in whatever you're doing for a living, whether it be law, art, or computer science, whatever it is. And that's what I've learned through my over 4.5 decades, I guess, on this planet, is that managing your campfire matters. So you have to write out the steps and you have to follow those steps. And then you have to do all the small things that make it possible to have that enjoyment at the end.
No, that's it. I mean, it's yeah, that reminded me of a Bible verse I read recently in Proverbs that, give careful attention to your flock. Make sure riches do not endure forever. So just because you have it now doesn't mean it's going to be there next month. What you were saying both confirmed what I've been reading and studying, and also just confirming the truth. It just keeps going, and you've got to find different ways to keep that fire going and
I saw
different
that a
work.
lot.
So right now I'm having to do a lot of work that is not attorney work, and it's driving me nuts. There's nothing that can be automated that hadn't already been automated. It's just taking the time and training, like deep training, not do this and this and this and this, like how to present something, how to do something. And yeah, it just takes a lot of time.
Yeah. And through my consulting work in the construction industry, the guys that have been there for 20, 30 years and that actually are happy with what they do, they cycle in and out of things a lot. They'll stay in bidding for 6 months to a year, and then they'll go work on a crew, and then they'll go run a crew. Like they're constantly moving through, because just sitting in that one area is a lot of times it will make you crazy. So
Yeah.
having the automations and the plan in place, having the people in place, and then, like you said, seeing about, checking on the health of your firm and your people matters, because just a tiny shift in, okay, I'm going to do this today versus you're going to do this today can change somebody's outlook on the whole month. And it matters in running a business. It matters in your family. It matters in everything that you touch. So keep doing what you're doing there, and keep having that line mentality. A line has a family around them, and they all contribute. And when it's time to fight, you know which one fights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my kids just watched The Lion King like last night, so I'm stuck on
Okay.
line
Which
analogies
one?
now.
The only one that exists?
Which one?
New
Are
stuff?
yeah, there's definitely something wrong now. We need to schedule an intervention. There actually, when it was over with, there was some kind of Lion King 18 or whatever that came up, was like suggested to watch, and my little daughter looked at me and goes, "They made more of this?" I said, "I've raised you correctly." So yeah. All right, man.
All right.
Keep going at it, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. See ya.
Appreciate you. Bye.
Yeah.